The first step then is to build a simple kaleidoscope. Keyboard shortcut 2 for the overhead view shows you that I have my perspective camera facing what I call north. This infinite plane I'm just going to delete. Keyboard shortcut 1 to switch back to the camera view. I'm going to create a default Bryce cube, and then holding the Alt key down, stretch it out so that it's this oblong shape. Then use Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and in the attributes edit its Z rotation to minus 120 degrees, and then Ctrl V to repaste the cube, and in the attributes of this one give it a Z rotation of 120 degrees, and then I'll just move my camera back a bit so I can see what I'm doing. I want to position these components so that they cross over like so. Go to the overhead view 2, select the entire lot, and then drag this edge out. So I now have this triangular aperture that I'm looking through. Widen my field of view a little bit, modify the material on this so it is 100% reflective. And at this point you can see we're starting to get some of the kaleidoscopic effect going. I've just widened the field of view again so we can see that there are areas on the perimeter when you've got a very wide field of view that are not getting filled in, and that can be corrected for in the render options by increasing the maximum ray depth. I'll try 12, and this will just increase the number of reflection bounces that take place. So the thing is that it's not looking quite right, and the reason for that is that the sky is a long way from the end of the aperture. If I was to create, say, just a sphere for example, and position it at the end of the aperture here on a corner and give that a quick render, you can see that it is repeating correctly. The sky is just too far away. Now what I could do to bring the sky in to the end of the aperture is create a lens system. So I'm going to use this sphere, enlarge it a bit, and then I'm going to copy and paste it, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, hold the Shift key down, and on this end of the new shape squash it down so the sphere is half the depth of the original. Use this option on the edit shelf to convert the selection to a cube. In the attributes of that cube make it negative, so it's a cutter, and here make this one this positive, so this front part of the sphere positive. So this is going to be my lens. Select the entire object, group it, modify the material. No diffusion is needed. I want it to be 100% transparent, and modify the refraction to 0, and this gives me a lens which focuses what arrives at the perimeter here onto the flat plane where it's cut. So if I place this so that it's level with the end of the aperture that I've created for my kaleidoscope made of mirrors, so there on the end, you switch to the front view now. I'm going to use, let's see which one's going to give me the best view. Number 4. I can make sure it's positioned correctly over the end of this, roughly speaking. So side view, that's number 3. There's my lens, that's my mirrors, there's my camera, and so now when I render this, the sky's been projected to the flat plane at the end, and I'm getting a good repetition of this image. I'm going to modify the document setup. I'll make it square now, and that will change the amount of repetition we get in because of the field of view set across the width there. So I'm going to narrow the view so it cuts the bits where it's missing off on the corners. So the advantage of doing all this is that I can now take whatever I've got in the sky, project it into the end of my kaleidoscope, and get a repeating pattern out of it. Now the sky's interesting enough, but there's more variance we can get through using high dynamic range images because they will work as projected backgrounds. So I'm going to use some that Haro and I have created. This is one of Haro's actually. He's called it Neon Wires, so I'll just use that and render, and you can see the difference. So I've got this repeating pattern, which, because it's a kaleidoscope pattern, if you use render in scene here, switch the image based lighting tab, I can rotate the high dynamic range image around. You can see its projection changing there, so you're getting different patterns depending where the image is rotated, like so, which is rather pleasing. But we can go further with this. If you've watched this video, I'll just bring it up where are you hiding video? From this video I'm going to take the mirrored box that I created and wrap it around the kaleidoscope now in an attempt to create a more complex effect. So I'll just load that scene in, and we'll steal the box from it and then use it in this scene. It just takes a little while to load. Okay, right, so here's the box there. I can add it to the create library. I'll just find somewhere to put it that's empty. Okay, there we go. So it's in that one there. Then go back into here and fish that out from where I left it. Okay, and then switch to the overhead view, zoom back a bit and wrap that around my scene. I can make it very large, it doesn't matter, probably better, and then we'll see the effect of adding that. So you can see that's had quite a dramatic effect on the scene. Interesting one. And then again we can rotate the image around to get different effects, like so. So I thought that was a rather pleasing result, but there's one more thing that we can experiment with here. So if I take this cube, which is still selected, and then select the cube which I'm using to cut through the back of this sphere, so that's going to be, let's try cube 3, no, it's going to be in here somewhere, not cube 3, cube 2, that looks like that's the one. Okay, go into the materials and then exit, then edit cube 2 on its own, go to the material and get rid of the bump element. So we've just got the coloration. So if you use actual selection you can see what we've got here. So this is now what's cutting the back of the lens off, and that's going to modify the behavior of this again. So I've now got a different effect going as a result of using another level of reflection. So there's a couple of things to experiment with there. I don't know whether I like this any better than the previous version or whether the previous version was more interesting. It's just I'm just suggesting a few different ways in which you can experiment with these processes to create different effects. So get the sphere, and if I select the cube 2 again, go to material, I can easily switch it back to where I was before, and you can see the effect of that. So there's a couple of options there, or anything else you want to try. Bear in mind, if you move the HDRI around, whichever one you happen to be using, you get a different effect. And you can also take the outer cube, I'll make it a bit smaller, you can see what I'm doing. You could also copy and paste that and then offset it from itself, and you will have more internal reflections and get different effects through using that as well. So it looks a bit like a stained glass window there. So there's a lot of ways you can use this. The preview here doesn't really give you an accurate idea of what you're going to get, because the ray depth for the preview is a lot lower than the ray depth as I've set it here for this rendering process. So that's why you have to keep nipping back and giving it a quick render to see what you've got. So I'll just try and find something that I like the look of for the final render, and then I'll use that as the image for the video. So I'm just having a explore here. If it's looking too bright in the middle, then you could lower the ray depth. It'll increase the render speed, and it'll stop all the extra subsidiary reflections there, because it won't be having all the additional bounces. So I can just zoom in a bit and get a bit more detail in the center of this image. So I've gone on for 10 minutes, so that's long enough. I hope you found that interesting and that you'll want to explore this effect in your own renders. Cheers now.